Hello and welcome to the Round 15 Team Sheets video. It is George from Fantasy Take TV, and today we'll discuss the 9 games this weekend, so post-bye, all the games are back. And yeah, we'll go over, it's a bit later in the year, so won't go too much in depth like we have in previous weeks, but we'll touch on the most important parts. And we'll also review the Melbourne vs Brisbane game, which has gone by. So, first game, Melbourne vs Brisbane, so ins and outs not too important. Gawn might be back soon, but I think the big talking point from this game was Luke Jackson solo rocking, scoring, I want to say 125 or something like that. So yeah, if you jumped on him, well done. I think he's a good short-term solution and a good cover for R3, F7 if you can push him to there. When Gawn comes back, you expect him to go back to, I don't know, somewhere between 75 and 85-ish, probably more on the lower end, that sort of average area. So yeah, I didn't really see it coming. I knew he had a good around the ground game, but we hadn't really seen him solo ruck before, and yeah, he did really well. So very annoying for people that didn't go him. So I think 25% of the top 5k brought him in. So that's a lot of people, and I was kind of hoping that the pick would flop, but it worked for this week. So yeah, well done if you went for him. I wasn't the biggest fan of the pick, but it worked. I opted for Oscar McInerney, who was really good last night. It's just, you know, Brisbane losing, do they change something up? So we'll bring Fort back in. I thought Hipwood was pretty poor, so I think he'll keep playing, but you never know. So yeah, happy with Oscar McInerney. I think probably a better long-term solution than Jackson, but just kind of depends what you need for your team. I mean, for me, I needed a bit of stability in the ruck, someone durable and with a bit of upside. So I went for him and see how we go long-term. But yeah, interesting game. Really disappointing to see Brisbane go out and lose like that. A little bit concerning, I guess, but they brought in Tunstall, I think more of an outside-ish role, so don't know about his job security. You think with Zorko coming back in, Bailey coming back in, it's going to be pretty tough for him to hold his spot, so that's not great. But other than that, not too much else to discuss. But yeah, Jackson with Gawn said he could be back next week or the week after or the week after that. I'd probably guess 2 weeks. It was 2 to 4 weeks, so call it 3. So, see how he goes. But yeah. Now, West Coast versus Essendon. So, in Rotham, Ryan, Tim Kelly. Out Dom Sheed, Greg Clark, Nelson McGovern. In Langford, Brian Snelling. Out McGrath, Phillips, Ham, and James Stewart. So, West Coast, if you have Greg Clark, is he... okay, so he could be sub. Witherden not named either. So I think if you have him, he's probably expendable. I mean, West Coast is so injury prone, maybe they give him a run, but if he's not getting games, he wasn't getting inside time before, I think they don't see him as a long-term solution. So maybe they just see him as a stopgap, and he hasn't really even been used for that. So I think you can cut ties with Greg Clark if you're looking to downgrade in the midfield. And then on Essendon's side, Langford's back in, so that's interesting for them. He got a bit of inside mid-time, so I wonder how... I still know Parrish, so I wouldn't be surprised if Zach Merritt has a slight role change in terms of CBAs. I don't think he's the best CBA mid, but his strengths are on the outside of the contest, so he's a pretty good tackler as well, I guess. But in terms of winning the in and under, not exactly his strength. So I think he's a hold, but you don't buy him. So see how he goes, and maybe if you can sideways him to Jack Steele in a few weeks, but he has a West Coast matchup this week, so that should be nice. For the Dogs in Crozier and Sweet, and then out McNeil, Duray, and English. So no Cleary, not emergency either. So if you thought if Cleary was any chance to play, you'd think it'd be this week. In for Hawthorn, McDonald, Blank, Warple, Impey, and Lewis. We'll go over the 2 rookies in a second, and out. Wingard, Callow, Morris, Hardigan, Frost, and Will Day. So on Bulldogs side, not really much. I have McRae captain this week. I think I went VC. Neil, didn't really work out, so I'll run with McRae. I think all the Dogs should be alright this week, given no Bailey Smith. So we saw an uptick in their scores last week, and I expect to see that again against a weaker midfield in Hawthorn. And Connor McDonald in, so he's one you can loop possibly with a, I don't know, Judson Clark or something like that, if you can do that to cover if you have English in the forward line or you have a Parrish in the mids or something like that. So good to see him back. And Blank. So I was looking at his VFL stats. So his key defender, part of Box Hill already. So they took him from their VFL team at Hawthorn, a bit like Newcombe last year. So he's in for Hardigan. So maybe he does hold. Or Frost is injured as well. Not too sure. So yeah, key defender, not a single score over 60 fantasy. So probably not a great scorer, but maybe he holds his spot if he plays well. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have drafted him. But given Frost is out, I'm not exactly sure what the plan is with him. So I think he could do worse, but I think Ambrosio is probably a bit better. So a bit more scope for scoring. So I'd probably go him. But yeah, Hawthorn's side of things. No Finn McGuinness has been good in the VFL. Granger Barras emergency. So he's actually won his spot ahead of a few defenders here. Not super tall back there. It's just the two key defenders. Sicily will have to play tall for sure. That's interesting. So see how they go. And then Butler held, which is nice if you have him. Carlton versus Fremantle. Kemp and Honey in. I think he was a rookie last year, Honey. Martin, Fogarty, and Durden out. Durden is out for a while, unfortunately. I think about a month or so. And then Fremantle, Henry, Taberner, Frederick in. Out Akers, Tucker, Walters, and Swikowski. So Carlton side of things, not a whole lot going on their side. You would think with no Chera still, that probably helps Sam Walsh's CBAs, but otherwise probably goes back to centre bounce mid and then half forward probably a bit more half forward than centre bounce mid next week, but still think he's a fine pickup, Sam Walsh. I think he's top 10 mid, so I think he's a solid pick. Just works so hard, so we all know what Sam Walsh is. And Fremantle, they have Brody. It's not starting on the bench this time. I think Fife's mid minutes are going to ramp up over time. We'll see. So maybe that does affect Brody. I'm not too sure, but they kept him in the mids last week with in round 13 rather with Fife. So still feel okay about the Brody pick. Yeah, Brayshaw's been unreal the past few weeks. So yeah, he's looking really, really good. But tough matchup against Carlton. But we know like Brayshaw runs so hard. You never like start to finish. One thing you love about Andy Brayshaw is he just gives it all for 120 minutes every game. So you know that he's going to try his guts out. So yeah, he's great to watch. Definitely all Australian this year. Geelong versus Richmond in Rowan, Henry Holmes out, Cooper Stevens, Francis Evans, Dalhouse, Guthrie in, Dustin Martin, Soldo, Ross, Hugo, Lambert, Bolter, Cochin out. So that's good. So Judson Clark holds, but on Geelong side, Cooper Stevens maybe didn't play super well, I guess, but with Dangerfield still out, you would have thought that maybe he was a chance at holding. So maybe, I mean, he's got sub written all over him, I think, looking at this, but we'll see. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So Blitzov's named key back, so people might be considering him. I don't really have a good read on the Blitzov's pick. Like, is he playing key back? Is he playing wing? Is he playing ruck? Well, I don't think he'll play ruck because I got Stanley, so he'll probably shoulder most of that. So for me, I can't really get my head around the pick, but if you have a better read on it and you understand it, I think it's fine, but I don't understand the pick, so I'm pretty worthless to ask on this one. So for me, it seems like there's too much risk, so I'm avoiding, but yeah, one where I'm not too much use for you there, but you can see that Chris Scott can use him anyway, so it's a problem. And then Richmond, Dusty's back in, so could he be an option? I'm not interested. I think he's had just too many hiccups the past 2 years, just here and there with his like niggles or off the field stuff. Probably a bit harsh to say off the field stuff, but he had like struggled with his dad and stuff like that, so had to take mental health leave. But yeah, for me as well, in terms of on field, like the role isn't super great. So, but Richmond, I think will storm home, and he might be a good chance to prime himself for the back half of the year. So I'm actually really excited for this game, Geelong vs Richmond. So, see how they go. Toby Nank has been a good pickup, so he's probably the one you go to if you, for whatever reason, don't want Darcy or Witts. But yeah, we'll move on now. Rioli is in. Forgot to mention that. Rioli and Judson Clark in. So I think if you have both, you think at least one of them plays. But a few, Lambert and Cochin will be in soon. So maybe one of them makes way. Not too sure. Sydney versus St Kilda. In Clark Hickey, out O'Riordan, Laddams and Wicks. In for the Saints, Cooper Sharman, and the King, Jack Steele. Can't wait to see him play. Hill, Higgins, and Ryder is managed. Interesting. Okay. Not that it matters, but would help if it was against a relevant ruck, because Ryder does restrict a fair bit. So Sydney, nothing really to discuss on Sydney side of things. No. Mills on both, so that's good, but you never know. Like, if they start losing, they throw him back. So yeah, see how they go. But Mills scores anywhere, and he's an unbelievable scorer. Saints side, nothing really to discuss. I think Jack Steele, I wouldn't go early, given the high break even, and just see how he goes. I mean, I said see how Tim English goes when he came back in, and he dropped to 160 or something. So maybe Steele can do the same, but high break even, get a good look at him, see if he's fully recovered. Probably is. So maybe just needs a game to build match fitness, but yeah, he's one where in maybe 2 weeks' time, if you have the trades, you can sideways your worst mid to Jack Steele, and that'll be a nice pod for you, I think. So one I wish I could do, but we'll just start him next year, I guess. But yeah, and then Gresham. Some people might be picking Gresham as their replacement in the forward line for Zach Butters. With Steele back in, you think that Gresham's scores increased with no Jack Steele, but I still think Gresham will score decently because they need him in the mids. Adds a bit of flair in there, so I think he's an okay pickup if you want to go for Gresham. I prefer Isaac though, but can't deny Gresham role was a bit better. So Collingwood on Sunday, Begg, Poulter, Chug, and Roscoe in. Out to Goey. Don't know when he'll be back. Probably had a bit of a pile on him during the week, so probably just needed a week off or something. You expect him to be back sooner rather than later. Giants. Brown, Lloyd, Briggs, Davis, Taranto, Dirksen, O'Halloran, out Pruce, Peatling, Angwin, and Sproul. So on Collingwood's team, so maybe Begg, no, it's not Begg, it's Chug. Maybe Chug debuts. I think he's a decent chance. There was some footage going around Twitter where Chug was like kicking a goal, where it's like when some clubs do, you kick this goal, you're in the team, something like that. It kind of looked like they were doing that, so maybe he plays, but scoring is quite poor in the VFL. A 123k defender, again, I think you're better off with Parnell or Ambrosio. But yeah, nothing really on here. Who's Carmichael might play soon. Coach has hinted that Carmichael might play soon, so it is hard to find a spot for him. You know, they still got Poulter and Finn McRae who they haven't been playing, so maybe they get a go before Carmichael, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, I think the coach has been praising Carmichael, which is a good sign. So he might be one you go to over Cully as your 102k, but I'm not too sure. You could even go, if you're looking for a 102k in the mids, you could even go a defender mid, so that way you can cover like a short in the mids or something like that. Whereas you use your like a Jacob Ware or Parnell or Ambrosio down back to cover your mid, if that makes sense, if you get an out there. So I think that's not a bad idea. But yeah, on Giant side, so Taranto in is a big one. And I don't know if Briggs plays because he's not even named as the first ruck, but GWS like to stuff around on the team sheet. So you would think Briggs plays, but he's been recovering from the flu this week, so I'm not too sure. But yeah, they're definitely playing Keith though. Taranto, I don't like going blind on players. I think the main issue with Taranto for me is like, how is the back injury going to linger or anything like that? Like, I'm not too sure what the nature of the back injury is, because backs they can be very, very frustrating and debilitating, and you know, players can play through them. I think Scott Pendlebury and Tom Hawkins were two players that played with back issues the entire year. Their output dropped, and they couldn't get it fixed till off-season, till they had surgery. And yeah, they both came back incredibly well. So with Taranto, I don't like it because of I don't understand the nature of this back injury. So for me, he's a no-go for this round, but I could be wrong on that. But I don't like the risk. So I want to get a look at him and also where they play him. I assume in the midfield though. And then Bruce, I think it's, if you haven't jumped off by now, even if you traded him in last week, I would be jumping off. And I know he's out for a week and he'll come back because Flynn is out, kind of has to play. But I think this pick is just, a disaster. I mean, it's already been a disaster the past few weeks, but it's another disaster waiting to happen because, well, when you hear the commentary from the coach, they were saying that, you know, he needs to build his fitness back up. He's had a few issues with his body over the bye rounds or the period where he missed. So I think there's just so many red flags with Bruce, and yeah, I would get out personally. But I guess now you've been through the crap, maybe you hope he comes back and comes good. It could happen. I would get out, to be honest. And even if you are holding, like, are you just taking a 0? Are you, like, you probably need Darcy Cameron or something. So I guess if you have Darcy Cameron, you could look at holding. But for me, I think it's the picker's trouble, and it's been done to death now. So I would get out. Whitfield named on the wing, so that's pretty good. So encouraging if you want him. I think he's a fine pickup for his price. But I would pay up if you can, for sure. Just, it's Whitfield, something will probably happen to him. And then I think these are the last two games. So North versus Adelaide, this would be a riveting game. Bonner, Mackay, CCJ, Zohar, Archer, Thomas, in Zeeble, Horn Francis, Lockie Young out, in Chase Jones, Himmelberg, Schoenberg, and Hinge, and out Riley Thilthorpe. So we'll go over Sunday teams tonight when we do the trades video, our final trades. So yeah, it could be interesting to see if a few, who gets named on the extended bench here. I think the main one here is Archer is playing only 7 disposals in a game in the VFL, so I don't see him as an option to go early on. And yeah, I don't think there's really much else to discuss here. So Anderson named on ball, so one you could look at if you want to trade him in, but a little bit risky, injury prone, a bit older. Maybe they want to put younger players more in the midfield. Not exactly sure. So Taron Thomas named on field, so he'll be back in the team. And that's pretty much it. A few people going Todd Goldstein. I don't mind Goldie. I think it's come to this where we're trading in Todd Goldstein. That's how dire the ruck is at 34 years of age, but he's been good. Good interview on the couch about him. So he says his body feels really good. You think he'll probably average like 105 or something for the rest of the year. I don't think it's beyond him, but given his age, maybe they want to give Cherry more ruck time. But I honestly think that they'll stick with this 65-35 combo with Goldie and Cherry. But that's just, you never know for sure. But I think Noble needs to be competitive, and I think that's what they need to do. So that's just my view, but can't be sure. And then the Crows. So for me, I just kind of hope Matt Crouch has dropped, which should help Dawson and Haitley. I think Dawson scored really well last week, but he scored best in the fourth quarter when he played wing, so I still maintain that he's better on a wing for scoring, but down back, given the amount of supply he's getting, it's not the worst thing either. So yeah, Parnell, I think he'll keep holding his spot because he played well. I think defensively he has to work on a few things, but he can show an ability to win the footy and use it well, which honestly it's pretty slim pickings at the Crows for flankers outside of Brady Smith, I guess. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I don't know who plays here. I just kind of hope that Matt Crouches makes way for anyone, to be honest. Port Adelaide versus Gold Coast. Burgoyne, Bergman, Motlop, Schofield, Boak, McKenzie in, out, Teakle. He's out for 8 weeks. Cleary, Butters out. So Butters out. Could be 1, could be 2, could be more. Not too sure, but it sounds like not too long. Fiorini, Burgess, Hollands extended. Roses, Atkins, Day in, out. Biderick, Jeffries out for the season. So pretty much a trade out if you can. And Will Power, he's out for the season. Nasty ankle break. So Port Adelaide side, Rosie, I don't mind Rosie as a pick. I have him in fantasy and he's quite fun to watch. He's quite a good mid, and Mead as well. If you somehow still have Mead been stuck on your bench, it's kind of nice he can cover for you, but might be out when Butters comes back in. But he played well last week. Houston as well. Houston gets thrown around a bit, so not really one I'd look at, but can't deny he's been good this year. And then on Gold Coast side, so Witts, I still wouldn't captain Witts. Could be wrong here because he's rucking against Finlayson, but yeah, no Sam Hayes this week. But just his really, if he's not getting hit outside advantage, which you expect him to get, there might be a game of low stoppages like it was against Hawthorn a few weeks back. So, I mean, you could captain him, but just didn't look great last week. Was barely getting off the ground. So, yeah, hopefully he doesn't tire or anything, but I still think he's probably the top 3 ruck still. So, yeah, hopefully he can, for owners, that he can capitalize this week. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think we'll get Hollands. Basically, the comments from Stuart Dew, I don't know, 2 months ago, were Hollands, basically needs to put on a bit more weight for AFL level. His frame isn't probably at the level yet. We saw that in the preseason, but he's knocking on the door. You can't do much more, given how well he's going in the VFL. So we'll see how he goes. But yeah, those are the teams. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.